Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, that is Exploring Biology with Sandeep. In this video, we are going to start the next chapter of the grade 9, that is the tissue. Fine. Before tissue, as we read in the previous chapter, cell, the all organisms are made up from the cell. What is the cell that we discussed in the last chapter also? Cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Fine. It is a structure and functional unit of life. Fine. As we discussed in the previous chapter, there are two types of the organism on the basis of the cellular organization. That is the unicellular organism and the multicellular organism. Now, in the unicellular organism, that is the cell made from the one cell only, and the multicellular organisms are made up from the many cells. Fine. In unicellular organism, all the functions are performed by a single cell only. Fine. Whatever the function is here, like respiration, excretion, digestion, excretion, whatever the function is here, all functions are performed by the one cell. For example, we can give the examples of the unicellular organism: amoeba, paramecium, euglena. These are the examples of the unicellular organisms, and their one body that is made from one cell only, which is performing the all basic function inside the organism. Now come on the multicellular organism. In multicellular organism, there are many cells which are further performing some specific functions. Fine. Cells are the similar shape of the cells are combined together and they form the tissues in multicellular organism, and the tissues further form the organ, and organ further form the organ system. Fine. So from here we can get an idea, in the multicellular organism, all the functions are performed by the some specific tissues, fine, or some specific cells. How these tissues are formed? When the similar type of the tissues which having the similar shape, similar structure and similar functions, they combine with each other and they form the tissue. Further, the similar tissues who's having the similar shape, structure and function combined with each other and they're forming the organ. Further, the whole organ, when we assemble into a body, then they will form a organ system, or we can say that the organism. Fine. So this is the just basic introduction of this chapter. What is the need of the tissues and how the tissues are formed. Fine. Okay. Definition of the tissue. This is a group of cells which having similar structure and function. So definition of the tissue is the group of the cells which having the similar structure and function is known as the tissue. Fine. Next we are going to start with the division of labor. Now what is the meaning of division of labor? Basically, the division of labor occurs in the multicellular organism only, because the multicellular organisms having the many cells which are just going to be perform the different functions inside the body. So they are showing the division of labor. As we all know, what is the meaning of the labor? That means the labor is the person who is doing the some specific function. Fine. The same function is performed inside our body by the cells. Fine. Okay, how they are doing the division of labor? For example, as we told already, the tissues are the group of the cells which having the similar structure, similar shape and the similar function. They combine together and they form the tissues. Fine. Now what the tissue which is formed, they are already able to be perform some specific function. For example, I am giving you example. For example, if we observe our body, here we having a brain on the top, fine, heart, lungs, kidneys and many more organs. What these organs are doing? These organs are formed from the tissues and the organs are doing their specific function inside our body. For example, brain is helping in the thinking, fine, and helping to be control our body organs, and heart is helping to be pump the blood to the different parts of the body. Lung is helping to be exchange the gases, fine, and next kidneys are helping in to be excrete the waste material from the body, like in the filtration of the blood. Excretory system help to be remove the waste, fine. So these all specific system or the specific organs are performing their specific function inside the body. That means they are doing the division of labor inside the body, specifically in the multicellular organisms. Fine. The next question arises here: why the plants and animals are made up from the different type of the tissues? We know that they are very different organisms and they are the living organism, but they are very different from each other. How they are different from each other? For example, if we are talking about the plants, plants are the autotrophic organisms. Autotrophic, all we know, autotrophic organisms are the organisms which can prepare their own food by their own self. Fine. On other hand, if we're talking about the animals or the human beings, they are heterotrophic organisms. That means they are not able to be prepared their food by their own self. They are depending on the other organisms for their survival. Fine. Next, plants are fixed, or we can say the plants are stationary. They are standing on a one place only. They can't move from one place to the another place. But animals are showing the locomotion. They can move from one place to the another place in search of food, in search of shelter. Fine. Then plants require the less energy. Why they require the less energy? Because they are standing on a one place only. Most of the tissues in the plants are the protective and the supportive, which give them a support to stand and which give them to the strength. Fine. And the protective tissue protect the plant from the external injuries. Fine. But in the animal case or the human beings, they require the more energy as compared to the plants. Why? Because they are the heterotrophic and they can show the locomotion. They need to be moved from one place to the another place. So they require the more energy, and inside their body more complicated processes are going on which require more energy. Right? So these are the differences on which the plants and animals having the different type of the tissues. The tissues are very different from each other and they are performing the different functions inside the plant and animals. In this chapter, we are going to be do about the two different type of the tissues, that is the plant tissue and the animal tissue. I'm just going to be give you the flow chart of the plant tissue and animal tissue before starting, so that you can get an idea of what we are going to be doing in this chapter. Only these tissues are in your syllabus and these are very easy. I will teach you in very easy way, so all the doubts of your from this chapter will be clear very easily. Fine. So let's start with the first of all plant tissue. Plant tissue जो है, this is further having the two types. First is the meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Plant tissue is further having the two types. First is the meristematic tissue and second is the permanent tissue. Further, meristematic tissue having the three types, that is the apical meristematic tissue, intercalary meristematic tissue and lateral meristematic tissue. Fine. Next, permanent tissues having the two types, that is the simple permanent tissue and complex permanent tissue. Fine. The complex permanent tissue is further also of two types, that is the sportive permanent tissue and protective permanent tissue. In sportive, there are three types of the tissues, that is the parenchyma, Second one is the collenchyma. Third one is the sclerenchyma. Fine. Protective tissues also having the two types. First is the epidermis and second is the cork. If we talk about the complex permanent tissue, it's also having further two types. First is the xylem, second is the phloem. Fine. Xylem and phloem having the further four type of the tissues inside or the cells inside it, that we will discuss further in the chapter. Fine. I will tell you the xylem, parenchyma, xylem fiber, tracheids, and the phloem is seed tube cells, companion cells, phloem parenchyma, phloem fibers. Fine. And xylem vessels are the further categories of the complex permanent tissue. So in this chapter, first of all, we will discuss about the plant tissue. I will give you a quick review about what we are going to be do about the plant tissue in this chapter. Plant tissue having the further two types, that is the meristematic tissue and the permanent tissue, and the meristematic tissue further having the three types: apical meristematic tissue, intercalary meristematic tissue, and the lateral meristematic tissue. And the permanent tissue having the two types, that is the simple permanent tissue and the complex permanent tissue. Fine. The simple permanent tissue is further divided into the two categories, that is the sporty permanent tissue and the protective permanent tissue. In sporty permanent tissue, there are three types of the tissues: parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. And in the protective, two types of the tissues are here: epidermis and the cork. And in the complex permanent tissue, we having the xylem and phloem, and further we having the four types of the cells in the xylem and the phloem. In xylem, we having the tracheid cells, vessels, fine, xylem parenchyma, xylem fiber, and in phloem also we having the companion cells, seed tube cells, fine, and phloem parenchyma and the phloem fiber. This much we are going to be discussed about in the plant tissue only. Fine. Next flow chart which I am going to be discuss with you of the animal tissue. But one by one we will do these tissues. Firstly, we will start with the plant tissue. But in this video, I will give the flow chart of animal tissue also, what we are going to be doing in this chapter. Fine. So let's see what is in the animal tissue. Okay. In animal tissue, we are going to be in the four further tissues. First is the epithelial tissue. Second is the connective tissue. Third is the muscular tissue. And fourth is the nervous tissue. Four type of the tissues which we are going to be discuss about in this chapter. Fine. Further, these tissues having the categories, like in the epithelial tissue, there are the five types of the tissues. First is the squamous epithelial tissue. Second is the cuboidal epithelial tissue. Third is the columnar epithelial tissue. Fourth is the ciliated epithelial tissue, and fifth is the glandular epithelial tissue. And in the connective tissue, there are further three types of the tissues for which having further their categories. First is the connective tissue, second is the skeletal, and third is the fluid. In the connective, there are the four types of the tissues: areolar, adipose, tendon, and the ligament. And in the skeletal, two types, that is the cartilage and the bones. And in fluid, two types, that is the blood and the lymph. Fine. Further, muscular tissues having the three types, that is the striated muscular tissue, smooth muscular tissue, cardiac muscular tissue, and the nervous tissue having only a single, that is the nervous tissue. So this both flow chart we have discussed, that is of the plant tissue and the animal tissue, and we have discussed the categories also, what we are going to be discuss about in this chapter. So this is all about today's video. if you have any queries or any doubt related to this, then you can write the message in the comment section so that I can read and I will clear your queries into the next video. So if you like my content, please like, share and subscribe my channel. And you can also follow me on the Instagram. This is my Instagram handle. You can follow me there also. And thank you so much for your wonderful cooperation. Thank you so much.